Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sami Assad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings, human listeners.
Greetings to everyone. I should reiterate, Ben and I are a pair of automotive journalists, and we're also very good friends. But you know what? I just realized that every time I do that intro, I commit a small lie. I say, as always, I'm here with my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, that's you. But there's been at least one episode where I wasn't here.
Yeah, an episode that went really smoothly. Just want to put that out there.
And there were no lies during that episode.
I don't remember any.
Okay. That is the voice of my good friend, fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting, as I reiterated twice now. Ben, tell the people where they can find all of your latest work.
Sure. You can find my work at Motor Trend, at Car and Driver, and at Inside Hook.
And you can find my work at autotrader.ca, driving.ca, and Electric Autonomy Canada. I'm going to apologize. Last week we missed our episode due to an emergency cleaning situation I had with my child. That was it was just bad luck, really. And
we couldn't reschedule. we couldn't reschedule because of a major life event that took up the entire weekend. So it was one of those. It was just like a May where we only had 2 podcasts, which is super weird and hasn't happened in a very long time, I don't think. So we're gonna try and get back on the podcast train and not let that happen again.
Yes, and we really appreciate you guys sticking with us, listening to the podcast again, even though we missed some episodes this month. But we got some cool. Yes.
It means we have a backlog of cars to talk about. And I want to say off the bat, this is a unique podcast because everything that the whole recording situation right now, my computer, my mic, monitors, everything, the stereo, it's being powered by a Ford Lightning that's in my driveway. And I have an extension cable that's running out through my porch because they were doing some work I guess most of the day in my neighborhood. And by neighborhood, I mean out in the woods. And there was a planned outage that lasted a little bit longer than it should have. The power came back on, but I don't trust it because we've been having a lot of power flickers lately where it will come on and off. And there's also an issue where while I was talking to the crew that was working on my street, there's another wire that's almost completely frayed. And I pointed it out to them and they're supposed to take care of that too. And I don't know when that's going to happen. So all that to say, I didn't want to take the chance that we would lose power in the middle of the podcast. So this podcast is being powered by a Lightning as we speak.
And I think we've got to be among, the only podcast that is half powered by a vehicle, right?
And I want to say something about
50%.
Yeah, 50% Pro Power onboard, which is what the system is called. The weird thing about it is you have to have the vehicle on. And I don't mean like accessory or just on and not running. It has to actually be running, ignition running, from what I understand. I tried to run it without it, and it kept giving me a message that said ignition must be on in order for, and ignition is a weird term to use when talking about an EV. So the vehicle's in my driveway right now. Anyone could come up and drive away with it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just sitting there.
So how are we preventing that?
I'm not. There's no way to prevent it. That's just how it is.
You didn't put a pylon or anything in front of the car?
I don't know if a pylon would prohibit people from driving over said pylon.
What? Can you imagine an electric vehicle? Its range would tank severely if it had to go over a pylon.
The thing about the system is I believe they don't expect you to use it unattended.
Yeah, I understand that.
They don't just, but you could if you wanted to, because that's what I'm doing.
You have been.
I've been pushing the limits. Yeah. I can't even see the truck from where I am. I assume it's still there because we're still recording.
Yeah, if the recording stops, we'll know that's why. We're not talking about the F-150 Lightning this week, though, even though you're testing it and doing all these cool stuff with it and putting it through the paces that have been just marketing blabber for so long. Nobody knows if that actually works doing what it says it's supposed to do. But we're not going to talk about that at all.
I think we.
No, we're not going to. No way.
All right. Okay.
You want to talk about it?
No, not anymore.
After that? After I declared that we're not going to?
No, I feel weird.
Instead, I want to talk about a vehicle that seems to cost twice as much as the F-150 Lightning, and that is the Range Rover long wheelbase SV. Now, I believe SV stands for special vehicles, but it could stand for something else.
Super Veloce?
Maybe. I think that's what it does in Lamborghini speak, perhaps.
Yeah. What's a V word? Spider Violet?
Spider Violet, yeah, sure.
Does the top open?
The top does not open.
So it's probably not a spider.
Very few things in this car open. It feels like a bank vault on wheels, but if that bank vault was just super cushiony, comfortable, full of equipment, and costs, let's see here, $235,000.
Is that Canadian dollars or US dollars?
That is American dollar. That is just like that is also the entry level price of the vehicle. I had a bunch of other features in there. Not features, sorry, customization. So it had all sorts of neat, like,
do you have your initials on the dash?
Not my initials, but someone's initials that started with S and V, I think. No, I'm joking.
When you say a lot of things don't open in the vehicle, that scares me because I like getting out of vehicles after.
No, you're stuck in there forever. You live in this car now.
That's a revolution in terms of automotive imprisonment.
A revolution, you say?
Yes.
It is the standard, I would say.
Okay.
It is this. I have to say, this is an expensive vehicle, and it's hard for me to criticize anything beyond the price of this car, but everything else about this car, this SUV, is just super cool. Like, it just kills me that this thing, like, it is the pinnacle to me, it is such a peak product that it blows my mind that Range Rover makes anything else. And they struggle at that. What does that even mean? The time.
Is that you saying that, like, because the 911 Turbo is so expensive, Porsche shouldn't make any other Porsches?
No. I think that this product, I think this thing has to be this expensive, right? Based on what was in it. First of all, it has a 600 horsepower V8, which I think is the only V8 left in the Range Rover lineup. I think there's also a V8 in the Defender lineup in JLR's product. I think it's a new one called the Octa. And it just is so special, like special. That is actually a rarity in the market today. A car that feels different, unique, interesting, and just makes you kind of like your eyes like open. Like, it opens your eyes and you go, this is not like another vehicle that I've driven.
So what makes it different than a regular Range Rover, which is pretty great already, but I think $100,000 less?
So not only
what are you getting for spending another six figures? Yeah, but the motor. I can get 600 horsepower in so many other vehicles. So what else makes it special?
You got the motor. You've got the sheer amount of customization. I know you're right that other over $100,000 cars have customization or bespoke products, but the quality of the cabin. This didn't even have like real leather. It had this thing called, I believe it's called ultra material.
That sounds like the fakest thing I've ever heard.
Ultra fabric. That's what it's called.
Have you tried our new ultra material?
Ultra fabric, which is, I know you're gonna hate this. It is considered to be one of these vegan.
Why would I hate it because it's vegan?
Because typically in reality, the vegan leather is just plastic, right? This didn't feel like that. This actually felt more like a softer, carpety kind of material, which is to say, I guess it just feels like fake cloth, but it felt really special. I really felt like this was, again, a detail. And this is the product. This is the car. There are details in this thing that just add up and add up. Just the controls feel something different, like feel something special. There's heft to certain products. It's it just surrounds you in something special. I don't know how else to describe this now. You're killing me. I feel ridiculous. But when you're in it, first of all, it accelerates like it I think it hits 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds, which is wild. This is not an EV. I know we've been getting used to crazy low 0 to 60 numbers in EVs, but this is an old-fashioned V8. And it does so with very limited sort of body roll and pitch and yaw with the cabin, which I thought was really impressive, despite it probably being a over 2 ton vehicle. It's got excellent brakes. It's got probably some of the most comfortable seats I've been in a long time. And to get into the mood even better, it's got what's it called? Massage seats. It's got solid heated steering wheel. It's got just about everything, man. It's got even like an air conditioned compartment in the armrest. And then in the back seat, of course, this is where I think the reality of the Range Rover SV comes to fruition. It's like it's made for people in the back seat, obviously.
Does it have? It's not 3 rows, right?
No, it's 2 rows. Even though it's a long wheelbase product, it's got 2 rows and only 2 seats in the back. Actually, no, it has a 3rd seat, but most of the time that middle seat is folded down. Because it's got a console and controls for the other 2 seats as well, which I guess would make things really uncomfortable for if you need to make any adjustments and somebody's in the middle seat. That would just make it impossible, I guess.
Is it an actual seat or is it just like a large console?
It's a huge console, but from what I understand, you can fold that up.
Okay,
and
then lean back into it.
Yes. There is some interesting things that happen when you make these when these products are made. For example, I was shooting the vehicle, and usually when you shoot, like I don't know if you do it, but I do. I like to shoot the vehicle with the seats up and then the seats down. And I really appreciated that the Range Rover has power folding rear seats that you can control from the cargo area. But the headrests of the rear seats, they hit the rear seat entertainment unit, which are on the back of the front headrests, and therefore cannot fold down.
Well, I've noticed that in a lot of vehicles that have similar problems, there are some designers that think of this issue, and when you hit that control in the back, it actually pushes the front seat forward.
Yeah, I needed that. Right, like for sure.
And it kind of points to the fact that I'm assuming that in the Range Rover, the screens that you're talking about, they just hang off the back. They're not integrated into the headrest.
No, I believe they like stick out of the back. I think because you can probably move them.
Move them where?
Like tilt them.
Oh, okay.
I believe so.
I noticed that whenever it's that kind of thing, it's always gets caught up on something.
Oh man. So I laughed at that. And I mean, of course, it's not like, I guess the joke's on me for assuming that a Range Rover would be practical, even in its most expensive and luxurious.
No, it should be practical. And the thing is, you're paying $200 and whatever $1,000 for this vehicle, right?
It should be able to do everything, including be practical, which I think it does everything but that, right?
It should have these kinds of small design decisions taken care of. Like it should.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, that's another valid criticism. I want to talk about the infotainment system, which I think is another place that this car could have been improved upon. There are no physical controls here. They're just it's all touchscreen all the time.
Oof, that's a little worrisome from a Land Rover product.
Yes. Now, one of the things that caught me off guard about it, though, is that they actually have some smart gestures in the infotainment system. So at first, I thought that in order to change the volume, you have to like tap it a bunch of times up and down, or same with the climate control. But in reality, if you just like these two features are the little boxes on the outside borders of the screen. So you just press that box and you can just slide it up and down, and that controls that. You can do the same thing for the HVAC settings, and you can do the same thing for the volume, which I think is actually pretty intuitive. It's quick, it's easy. You don't have to worry too much about like double tapping, because sometimes other vehicles that put all of the either entertainment information or HVAC settings on a touchscreen require multiple taps of the screen, and that can really distract you. Either they pop up a separate menu or something like that. But just being able to slide your finger around on the edge of the screen, I think was actually functional. Like that, it worked. It's a rarity, but I think that was something they figured out pretty nicely. Now, in terms of competition for the what's this thing called? Range Rover SV. I think the thing that you and I would probably call competition would be the BMW X7, but the X7 doesn't quite get to the stage, I think, of the SV. I think you'd have to go to Alpine for that.
Yeah, it has to be an Alpina version. But I mean, if you're looking at price, what else is there really? There's the Lamborghini Urus, which is in a similar price. There's a Cayenne. I think the Cayenne Turbo is probably up there as well.
But neither of those seem as luxury oriented as a Range Rover SV, right?
I'm not saying I'm not saying they're better or worse.
Oh, you're just saying price wise.
Yeah, they're in the competitive set.
There's this new BMW called the XM, I think might be there.
I don't think it's anywhere near that expensive.
Really?
Yeah. Oof. And I also think the XM is intended to be more sporty.
And a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, I mean, that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
At this point. It starts at $162,000 and it stops at just $170,000. So it's still considerably less expensive. What's a Cullinan start at, or Cullinan, or what?
I think a Cullinan is quite expensive. Let me double check.
Maybe
I think for sure it's expensive. I shouldn't have said that.
There's the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin DBX is probably around here as well. So you've got a competitive.
Cullinan is about twice the price.
Okay, so you've got a competitive set of maybe 5 vehicles. Mm-hmm. And of those, do you think that any of them offers a similar experience, or are they all different experiences?
They're all different, I think. I think the closest thing that you get without spending $200,000 is that X7. Maybe I need to get in one again, but to me, it left such a positive impression that is hard to overcome. Escalade might be the other one because it can be equipped with Super Cruise, and that to me is like a killer feature of these. Like, you want a car that, when you're spending this much money, you want something that is better than the rest, like truly better than the rest.
Or if not better, then at least different.
Okay. And having a killer app like Super Cruise is part of that shtick. Like that is effective to me.
When you say Super Cruise,
hands-free driving,
and you're saying that is not available for the Land Rover?
No, there's no hands-free. Nobody else has got good hands-free stuff
at this price point.
I don't think so.
I mean, I've noticed that too. I had a Defender. I believe I talked about it on the episode, but it was a Defender 130, and it was fairly well equipped, but it did not have hands-free cruise at all. It didn't even have adaptive cruise.
That's not possible, really?
Yeah, it is.
Now the worst part about JLR is that I think they're what's it called? They have something called limit. I think it's called cruise control limit.
Yeah.
And you have to press this button and change it in order for it to be adaptive cruise control. It's very bizarre.
I mean, there was no way on the steering wheel to change the following distance, for example. I mean, usually there has to be some type of following distance control to have an adaptive cruise control setting. And it just didn't have that.
Okay. Well, that's a failure. That's a complete failure, especially in today's market where almost every car comes with adaptive. A Corolla comes with adaptive cruise control.
Yeah, but there are many high-end brands that do not offer this feature as standard.
Who else does that? I swear Mercedes is like that.
In any case, so in a world where you're shopping for these vehicles, are you going to take this over a Cayenne? Are you going to take this over an Urus? I mean, do people who are shopping for a Lamborghini even look at a Land Rover at this price point?
I doubt it. I think you know what you're getting, and I think you know what you're looking for when you have that much money, and you either want this or you don't, right? You want something else. It's not about competition, right? It's about getting exactly what you want.
So how does Land Rover communicate that to people? How do they let people know that this vehicle exists and that they should want it?
I don't know. I guess they show up in play. I mean, that's a great point.
How many of these do you see? And if you were to see one on the street, does it look any different than any other Range Rover?
Well, mine did, because it had the bespoke paint finishes, which are satin, or whatever they call it, satin finish, which is really just a flat, a ridiculous flat. It was a flat red.
Okay. I mean, that looks cool.
It looks wild. Yeah.
I mean, any red on a large SUV is going to look cool because you never see that.
I think that works. And I also think, those other touches, the trim around can be customized. It can be bronze or blacked out or something like that. In a way that's just there's midnight packages and moonlight packages, and they're always these cheesy blacked out packages. It doesn't, I don't think it looks like that when they do it. So maybe, yeah, an SV could look unique. But so could a regular Range Rover, I guess.
So, anything else you want to say about this vehicle?
I think it's crazy. I think it's again, it's one of those things that you get in it and you're like caught off guard by how not normal it is. And I think
I kind of feel like that about the regular Range Rover. I don't. Maybe my bar is set like way lower than you.
Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating it a bit, but like to put everything into the package, which includes that powertrain and the way it drives, and the exterior and the interior, I think that's the complete package, and I think that's really cool.
So I drove something that you couldn't really refer to as the complete package under any circumstances. It's a much more affordable vehicle, and that's kind of the whole deal with it.
Okay.
But it's also something that I think is used maybe to excuse some aspects of it as well. And the car I'm talking about is the 2024 Volkswagen Jetta GLI.
It's called the Jetta GLI because for a long time I used to just call it the GLI, and I don't know if I was just making a fool of myself.
I think Canadian marketing had it as the GLI for a really long time, and they had GTI as well. I mean, remember when Volkswagen tried to sell us the Rabbit, and they stopped selling the Golf, and then there was the Rabbit, and then there was the GTI,
and the City Golf or Golf City?
But City Golf is just the previous generation Golf being sold. I had a friend who worked at a Volkswagen dealership, and he said the City Golf was really a gotcha because people bought it because it was somewhat cheaper, thinking that, it's the older vehicle, so I'm going to save some money. But parts availability was really bad.
Oh.
And so you ended up paying a lot of money if anything went wrong.
That's our Volkswagen.
In any case, the Jetta GLI is sold as an affordable sports sedan. In Canada, the pricing is... Actually, I don't remember what the pricing is, but I can tell you in the United States, it starts at $28,000. And I'm going to find the pricing in Canada.
The thing about that $28,000 Jetta GLI is, my understanding is that it's a limited edition. It's called the 40th anniversary, and I think only 1,984 of them are going to be built. So
that's the version that I drove.
That's so funny.
It's no different than the previous model. For Canada, it's $34,000.
Okay.
And it's actually cheaper than the base GLI.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
Which I think is so funny, right? Like the limited, usually you're going to pay more for a limited run vehicle.
I guess so. I think that the difference is the regular GLI has like leather, and I think that the 1984 one has something called molecular cloth seating surfaces. I don't know what that means.
Ultra fabric?
I would not get into it naked, is what I'm saying. You don't want to risk molecular cloth on your body.
That's fair.
But the GLI is important in the sense that it's under 30 grand, and there are not a lot of vehicles that are left under that price point that aren't just sheer economy vehicles at this point. If you're looking at other supposedly fun to drive sedans and hatchbacks that are compact, most of them are more money than that. Like the Hyundai Elantra N is $35,000. The GR Corolla is $37,000. The Civic Si is $30,000. So it's like
I think that's the closest thing. I think that's the closest thing to this product because
it's $2,000, but it's $2,000 more. Like you're even the WRX is like $32,000. You can't get a 4-door compact sedan with a manual transmission for under $30,000 anymore unless you want the Jetta GLI. Well, it's tempting to think about the GLI as like the 4-door version of the Golf GTI, which is a hatchback.
But the GTI has way more power now, right?
Well, I was going to get to that, but you stole my thunder.
Sorry.
Anyway, the GTI is $33,000. So right off the bat, it's almost $5,000 more. And that might include some delivery fees. So maybe it's only $4,000 more. But as you pointed out, even though they have the same engine, the same turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, the GLI is tuned for 228 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And I believe in the GTI, it's like 241 or something like that. 244, actually, with the same amount of torque. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Explain to me, Sammy, why the GTI has to have more horsepower from the same engine.
I mean, they're both front-wheel drive, so it's not like exactly like a torque steer thing or something like that.
Well, the GLI has plenty of torque steer at 228. Don't worry, it's there waiting for you.
I don't know. That really bugs me too, because technically these two things should be plug and play, right?
Yeah, it should be exactly.
Are they not MQB? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the platform. Everything's MQB now.
It's
like the TNG. It's like the TNGA of the Volkswagen lineup.
And the EGMP.
But it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that the GTI needs to be protected. Personally, I think that it's a very different customer. If you're wanting a small sedan, you're probably not shopping for a hatchback. So it just seems strange. The car comes with a 6-speed manual transmission, which is, again, very uncommon for any car really anymore, let alone a compact sporty car. You can get an 8-speed dual clutch if you want. Don't do that. Just get the manual. The manual is fine.
Is that what you had?
Yeah, I had the manual.
That's good.
It's not like a thrilling gearbox. It's not like a Mazda or a Honda gearbox, but it does the job. Mm-hmm. It wasn't frustrating in any way. But I have to say, driving this car, and now the GLI has, a sport mode and a regular mode and all that stuff. And sport mode makes it a little louder and from the exhaust, and it gives you some more throttle tip in. But I would have to say, my biggest impression from driving the GLI is that this is what the base Jetta should be. Like, It doesn't feel particularly exciting. It just feels like a competent small car. I'm not sure how performance-y it feels. Like, I haven't driven an SI in a very long time, but the last time I drove an SI, it did seem to make me want to drive it aggressively, more so than the GLI did. And that surprised me.
That's a tough conversation to have, because I think the normal Jetta gets really good fuel efficiency, and I don't think the GLI does at all.
Ooh, I don't remember.
Let me double check. Now, the other thing that you want to discuss is that this class has gotten weird. Like, that's the only way I can describe it.
Well, all the performance cars have gone crazy.
Yeah.
Like aside from the GT...
And the SI. The Honda Civic Si, which is manual only, which is one of the few things that makes the GLI stand out, because you can get an automatic version of it if you want to.
Like, you look at something like the Elantra N, which absolutely blows the GLI out of the water in every category. Driver engagement, power, performance, everything, styling. It's just a fantastic car. And it starts at $35,000, right?
Yep.
That's a pretty big jump from a base GLI, but it's not in the realm of outrageously expensive. And it's certainly better than a WRX, which is like $32,000. There's not a huge gap there. And then you have the GR Corolla, which is a couple thousand more than that. And these cars are wild. They are interesting to drive. They are legitimately fast. And they kind of occupy a space that has left the GLI behind. The GLI is probably the only vehicle of its type. I mean, we've already established it's the only one under 30 grand, but it's also the only kind of milquetoast performance car out there now. I guess the SI is there too, but as I mentioned, the SI does feel more exciting. The GLI just kind of feels like a small executive sedan.
Hey, that's positive.
Sure, but you don't get any of the badge recognition or, real horsepower that you would from a legitimate executive sedan. So it's just an odd place to be for Volkswagen. I don't know how many of these they sell or how many they want to sell. Is this a forgotten realm for the Volkswagen mothership? It's just this, they had this space in the showroom. They're like, well, I guess we're just going to put a GLI there. I mean, they added this 40th anniversary edition, but nothing really changed from 2023 to 2024. It's kind of status quo across the board.
No, I agree with you. I think this is staying on the vine, man. I don't know what maybe they have a market of, young kids who, I don't know, can't get the other cars or want something a bit more premium feeling than a Civic Si. Maybe
it's like 50 horsepower more or 60 horsepower more than the base Jetta.
That's a big jump, but it's also 6 miles per gallon worse combined.
Yeah, I guess if you're buying a GLI, you don't care about fuel mileage too much.
But you do if you're buying a compact car.
I guess so. But a compact performance car?
No.
So
we're at that weird thing. We're at that weird intersection.
I'm not sure who this car is for.
Would you prefer the Civic Si, or would you just tell everyone to save your pennies and get the Elantra N, of course?
I haven't driven the current generation Si. I can't say.
Or the WRX.
Every time I did not like the WRX very much, but I also drove the CVT model.
Yeah,
so it's hard to do a direct comparison there. Well, it was the only one available. I didn't have much choice. Everything about it is fine. It has adaptive shocks, so you can get stiff, you can get soft. It's up to you. It doesn't really make much of a difference in driving it. It's not a car that you really want to throw around. And as I mentioned, there's a fair amount of torque steer. So when you're coming out of a corner, you're kind of going to be fighting the steering wheel as well as fighting the corner. I guess it's a car that can give you a few thrills every once in a while, but it's not a car I would ever take to the racetrack, and it's not a car that I would ever describe as engaging. I think it's more of a comfortable car with a reasonably sized backseat for an affordable price that has decent power. And like, that's faint praise, I guess.
Yeah, very faint praise. Sorry, man.
Only because how good the sports sedan market has gotten. And you have to pay a little bit more for them, but the cars are legitimately exciting. Like, I really like the Elantra N. It's a really great car. And it would be awesome if Volkswagen had seen what Hyundai did with that vehicle and then picked up that gauntlet that was thrown down and done something similar. But the GLI kind of feels like a blast from the past.
Now, I was of the opinion that they're no longer in the space or in the mind space of selling performance vehicles to compete with the Elantra N. But then, like, the Golf R was updated and is really fancy, and the GTI, like you said, has way more power and feels like a staple of the product line.
Way more, like
40 more, 30 more horsepower. No,
13 or 14.
Okay,
it's
fine.
241 versus 228, which is, a small enough difference to make it weird. Like, it just, what's the point of that? Anyway,
yeah.
Is it to justify the higher pricing? Like, with delivery, I think the GLI is 29, which is like $3,000 less than the GTI. So they're making you spend $3,000 to get 15 more horsepower. It's just strange.
I don't know. The GLI has always been this weird car. Sorry, man. I just don't think
it has. It has.
It's from my understanding is the Jetta has always been a North American oriented product or focused product because North Americans apparently love sedans more than hatchbacks.
Well, we used to. Now we don't love anything.
Now we don't love anything. Yes. And I guess the GLI was the answer to the GTI in North America, but now it's still feeling a little underserved. Like it just doesn't feel like it's being paid any attention being paid to it, right?
Yeah.
They need to fix that, or do you think they're just waiting it out until?
I don't think Volkswagen is going to fix anything. I mean, we're talking about a company that, and speaking while we're talking about Volkswagen, there was some news that came out last week that the ID7 sedan, is it a sedan, Sami?
Yes, yeah.
So Volkswagen had planned
I love this story. It's a great
They had
story.
planned to introduce the ID7 sedan, which is electric, into North America, and then they just decided not to. They're like, nah, we're not going to do it. It doesn't feel like something that our customers want. And they also
delayed it indefinitely, and then they blamed it on the customers?
Yeah, something like that. They're going to keep selling in Europe, though.
Yeah. They're like, we need to make sure we get this right for the customers.
And I believe the ID Buzz van has also been delayed by another quarter, so it's not coming out till later this year. And you'd figure that this van, which is a spiritual, I guess, descendant of the original Volkswagen van in terms of styling, but happens to be electric, this would be the kind of car that Volkswagen could actually sell. Nostalgia.
You're so mean. Yeah, of course. I guess.
No, but it's nostalgia in an EV package. So they decided not to do that either for reasons. A lot of car companies are getting weird about the electric market right now because it's not going gangbusters like it used to. It's still selling, but just not at a huge level. And the reason for that is because largely everyone who wanted a very expensive EV now has one, and the companies all neglected to build out compact or
we've been talking about this.
Yeah, affordably priced EVs. They're just not out there. So once you've saturated the market, you have to look at other areas of what people actually buy, and the car companies didn't do that. So I think Volkswagen, they had planned to bring over this undoubtedly expensive ID7.
And I think the bus will be expensive too.
Sure, but they could have made a cheaper version of the bus. They just, they want to lead with the expensive ones first so that people buy those first and it helps them recoup their costs. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of bad business decisions. And I think that the reason I'm going through all of this mental exercise is because you look at the Jetta GLI and these are the same people making the choices here. And they've just decided that, you know what, we don't really need to do anything with the GLI. I mean, we're going to sell 20,000 of them a year or whatever it is that we're selling, and that's fine. We don't need to push it. Until we come out with like a much more expensive version, or an EV version of it, they're just going to status quo it.
This is my least favorite plan of action by automakers, right? Now, I think Volkswagen struggles with this because I don't think when they come back from the status quo, they don't hit one out of the park, because other automakers have done the same thing. I think Toyota for a while was really stagnant, and now every one of their products, be it their sales leaders or even some of their more niche products, like the Tundra, for example, or Sequoia, has been significantly updated since then, right?
Yeah, but I mean, Sequoia is still not great.
But it's significantly new, right?
Okay.
And the other automaker, I think, that is going through the same stagnation has a product that competes directly with the GLI, and we mentioned it a couple of times, and that's Honda. I don't know what Honda is up to lately, but they're making the same cars they've always made for a while without significant investment and change into their product lineup, right?
Yeah, you end up with a situation where you're not conquesting new buyers anymore. You're just selling to the same buyers, and that works for a while. But then those people,
but they're eventually going to find out that Hyundai exists, or
they're going to die. And like, no, but seriously, we saw this with brands in the '90s, like Oldsmobile and Buick. These were brands that were selling to the same customers over and over again, and they did
Buick
not.
Buick isn't dead yet. Stop it! They still make cars. One that you actually liked recently called the Invista, I think.
But they almost died, Sammy, which is my point. They did not make the effort of finding new customers. And when that happens, after X number of years, you're going to end up with no one waiting outside your dealership in the morning.
Yeah. Let's wrap this up. Are we done here?
Sure.
Are we done saying that Volkswagen has really which is funny because I mentioned this. I think that the Atlas, the Tiguan, and that Taos, that crossover, the small crossover. Now the Atlas and Tiguan both received really solid refreshes that made them super competitive after feeling like they're behind the curve in their early generation. Yeah. And the Taos, from what I understand, is actually quite good. I actually haven't driven it I don't think I've driven it at all. Have you driven it?
No, and I want to say...
Why are we driving these things?
Because they're not interesting. And I do want to say that it's perhaps a North America specific problem for Volkswagen, because if you look at their European stuff, as we mentioned, ID7, but they had a convertible version of the T-Roc, which was like a small compact crossover.
T-Roc, T-Cross, I've driven that one.
Yeah, T-Cross, like whatever it is. It's a vehicle they don't sell here, but they made a convertible SUV like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That's wild. There's no reason for that. I mean, that's a strange thing to do. So they need to get some of that cross-pollination over here in North America. People are still
Are they punishing North Americans? Now I'm actually feeling like they're against us because they've got those cool cars and they just announced those delays despite the fact that the Europeans are going to get them.
Sure, maybe they are punishing us. They almost never turn a profit in North America. It's like they spent decades not turning a profit here. So when do they give up? I don't know.
Interesting. That's it, man. I got nothing. I got nothing else to say to you about this.
Hit us up with the post-amble.
Okay. The post-amble includes, we hope you found this week's episode really interesting and engaging. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's really easy to do. You just hit us up on our website. You go to unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. There's a contact form there. You fill it out, and it lands in both of our inbox, which is really cool. If you don't want to go through the rigmarole, which I don't think it's much of a rigmarole of going to our website, you can email us the old-fashioned way. It's benjamin@benjaminhunting.com. He commonly shares those emails with me too, so don't think it's just a one-sided conversation there.
Sammy has my password. I hope he doesn't use it, but I have no way of knowing.
In addition to that, you can reach out to us on social media. You can find me on X, which is formerly Twitter. I'm at Sammy_ha, like you're laughing. I'm really quiet on social media because it's lately scared me a bit. And you can find Ben on Instagram, which is far less scary. He's at Hunting Benjamin. And
next week, Sammy, what are you going to be driving?
I'm going to be talking about the Lexus RX plug-in, which is the 450h Plus.
Okay, I'm going to be talking about the new Hyundai Sonata, which has been given a pretty thorough refresh for this year.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to hearing about that because those are pretty popular cars.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody.
See ya.